Hi, welcome back to the History Tales. Today we will dive into solar flares and CMEs, or coronal mass ejections. What are they and what sets them apart? Ready or not, here we go.
The sun's wrath, how CMEs could change life on Earth. Above us every day burns a force so powerful that it could end life on Earth in an instant. We see it every morning rising over the horizon, warm, comforting, dependable, the sun, the engine of life on Earth. But behind that bright glow is something wild, something violent. A churning ball of plasma and magnetic chaos, exploding with storms so massive they could swallow entire worlds. Most days the sun just shines, but every so often it lashes out. Massive waves of energy and charged particles blast into space. If one of these storms heads toward Earth, it's not just pretty lights in the sky we have to worry about. It's power grids collapsing, satellites frying, and communication networks going dark. Life, as we know it, thrown into chaos. It's happened before, and it will happen again. Today on the History Tales, we're exploring the terrifying power of CMEs, coronal mass ejections, and what could happen if the sun decides to strike. What is the sun? At its core, the sun is simple, and yet it's one of the most powerful objects in our entire solar system. It's a giant sphere of plasma, not solid, not liquid, made mostly of hydrogen and helium, burning at temperatures of millions of degrees. Deep inside, nuclear fusion is happening. Every second, the sun fuses over 600 million tons of hydrogen into helium, releasing a mind-bending amount of energy. That energy travels outward, eventually reaching us as sunlight, the warmth and light that make life possible on Earth. Without it, our world would be a frozen, lifeless rock drifting in space. But the sun isn't the quiet, stable friend we often imagine. It's constantly moving, shifting, roaring with storms. Magnetic fields twist and snap. Waves of plasma erupt from its surface. The sun is dynamic, violent, and sometimes it sends that violence straight toward us. When we look at the sun, it might seem steady and unchanging, but if we could zoom in close enough, we'd see a world of chaos. The sun's surface, called the photosphere, constantly churns with massive storms. Loops of magnetic fields twist and tangle, creating explosions of energy we call solar activity. One type of explosion is a solar flare. Think of a solar flare like the sun snapping a giant, powerful flash of energy into space, a sudden burst that can reach Earth in just minutes. It happens when magnetic energy that's built up in the sun's atmosphere is suddenly released. In just minutes, a solar flare can release as much energy as 1 billion hydrogen bombs. The radiation travels at the speed of light, reaching Earth in about 8 minutes. Solar flares can disrupt radio signals, GPS systems, and even cause brief radiation surges in the upper atmosphere, which is dangerous for astronauts and satellites. They send out intense bursts of X-rays and ultraviolet radiation that cause radio blackouts, especially on the side of Earth that faces the sun. These can ionize the upper layers of Earth's atmosphere, the ionosphere, disrupting high-frequency radio communications that affect aviation, seafaring vessels, and emergency services who rely on high-frequency radio systems. When a solar flare hits, the first signs show up in our skies and systems. Radio signals start cutting out, GPS navigation gets unreliable, satellites glitch, and if you're an astronaut, you head for cover. Here on Earth, most of us might not even notice at first, but pilots, emergency teams, and satellite operators definitely would. But solar flares alone don't usually knock out power grids or cause long-term damage on Earth. Now, this is where things get really intense. The sun gives us life, but every so often it reminds us just how fragile that life can be. A coronal mass ejection, a CME, is one of the most powerful forces in the solar system. It's not just a burst of light, it's an eruption. A tidal wave of charged particles, billions of tons in weight, hurled through space with unimaginable force. When a CME heads toward Earth, it doesn't just pass by harmlessly. It collides, slamming into our planet's magnetic shield like a battering ram. After a massive CME, if the magnetic field bends but holds, we see beautiful auroras, lights dancing across the poles, but if the CME is strong enough, the shield cracks. Normally, Earth's magnetic field acts like an invisible force field wrapping around the planet and deflecting most of the harmful solar particles away. When a CME strikes, it's like throwing a heavy punch into that force field. The shield doesn't break immediately, it bends like a giant rubber sheet stretching under pressure. If the energy from the CME is strong but manageable, the shield snaps back into place, and we might be treated to dazzling auroras lighting up the sky. But if the force is too powerful, the shield can tear open temporarily. Energy pours through, flooding into Earth's atmosphere and even into the ground itself. Electrical currents surge through the ground. Satellites falter. Navigation systems fail. Communications go silent. Entire power grids, the invisible web that connects modern life, can burn out in seconds. No electricity, no internet, no way to move money, to coordinate emergency services, or even to get clean water. A single perfect storm from the sun could send parts of our world into darkness, not for hours, but for weeks or months. And the most unnerving part, it's already happened before, once in a quieter world, a world without the technology we now rely on every single day. When one of these solar eruptions slams into Earth, the effects can ripple through every part of our modern world. First, Earth's magnetic field takes the hit, bending, flexing, and sometimes cracking under the force. Normally, Earth's magnetic field quietly protects us. But when a CME hits, it violently shakes the magnetic field, and that sudden movement creates electrical currents. These currents aren't just up in the sky. They can flow down into the Earth itself, into rocks, soil, and crucially, into man-made systems like power lines. Power grids are designed to carry electricity, but not this kind of electricity. These rogue currents, called geomagnetically induced currents or GICs, can surge through transformers and power stations, overheating them and causing them to fail. A strong enough surge can fry transformers, the massive, expensive pieces of equipment that keep electricity flowing to homes, hospitals and businesses that are critical to the grid. The scary part, replacing just one giant transformer can take months. If dozens fail all at once, entire regions could be left without power for a very long time. Then satellites start to fail. Communication networks, GPS navigation, weather forecasting, all thrown into chaos. Airlines reroute flights away from the poles, where radiation levels spike dangerously. Radio communications break down, especially for emergency services and transoceanic aircraft. The modern world, so connected so fast, could grind to a sudden silent halt. The Carrington Event of 1859, a real warning. This isn't science fiction. We know what a massive solar storm can do because it has already happened. On the morning of September 1st, 1859, British astronomer Richard Carrington was observing the sun through a telescope when he saw something never documented before, a sudden, intense flash of light erupting from the surface. It was a solar flare, and it marked the beginning of what would become the most powerful space weather event in recorded history. What Carrington didn't know was that this flare was just the warning sign. Alongside it, the sun had launched a coronal mass ejection, a colossal burst of solar plasma, and it was headed straight for Earth. Just 17 hours later, that CME slammed into our planet. The impact was unlike anything anyone had seen before. Telegraph systems across Europe and North America, the cutting-edge communication tech of the 19th century, began to malfunction in the strangest ways. Operators reported receiving electric shocks. Some saw sparks jumping from their equipment. Telegraph paper caught fire. But the most shocking part, even after being completely disconnected from their batteries, some telegraph systems continued to send and receive messages. They were still running, not on man-made power, but on the storm itself. The solar storm had injected so much current into the ground that Earth itself had effectively become a power source. The magnetic chaos in the upper atmosphere created current strong enough to flow through telegraph wires for hundreds of miles. It was as if the planet had been plugged into the sun. And across the globe, people stared in awe and fear as glowing auroras lit up the skies, not just in the far north, but as far south as Cuba, Jamaica, and even Colombia. The night sky was so bright, newspapers could be read by aurora light. But here's the real takeaway. In 1859, there were no power grids, no satellites, no cell phones, GPS, internet, or space stations orbiting above us. The world wasn't wired. Today, everything is. If a storm of the same magnitude hit now, the damage wouldn't just be inconvenient, it would be global. Entire power grids could collapse, GPS systems would fail, satellites critical for weather forecasting, communication, banking, even military coordination could be damaged beyond repair. Planes would be rerouted, emergency response systems could go dark, financial markets might freeze, and with transformers fried, restoring power wouldn't take hours or days. It could take months. Hospitals, water treatment plants, data centers all depend on the grid. And once the grid goes, modern life doesn't just pause, it breaks. The Carrington Event is not just a historical oddity. It's a warning shot across time. A preview of what the sun is still capable of. What if a Carrington-level event happened today? And here's the twist, we almost found out just how real this threat is. In July of 2012, the Sun unleashed a monster, a CME so massive and fast-moving, it rivaled the Carrington Event in intensity. It hurled billions of tons of solar plasma into space, racing at over 3,000 kilometers per second. Had it erupted just a week earlier, Earth would have been directly in its path. NASA later confirmed that we had dodged a bullet. According to a study by the National Academy of Sciences, the impact could have caused widespread blackouts across entire continents. GPS failure affecting weather forecasts, internet navigation, TV and global communication. A powerful CME can fry their electronics or knock them offline completely. Then there would be loss of satellite communications and disruptions to everything from aviation to emergency services. Stock markets, banking institutions and large-scale data centers operate on tightly synchronized global timing systems, many of which rely on GPS signals and satellite communications. A significant solar storm could disrupt or degrade these signals, leading to systemic desynchronization, data corruption, and interruption of critical financial transactions, potentially causing instability across global financial markets. The total economic damage, estimated at up to $2.6 trillion, that's in 2012 dollars, with recovery times ranging from months to years depending on the region. And the scariest part, most people never even heard about it. While the sun remains unpredictable, we are not entirely powerless in the face of solar storms. Organizations like NASA and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, are actively working on various solutions to protect us from the potential havoc of solar flares and CMEs. One of the most crucial tools in this effort is the Solar Dynamics Observatory, or SDO, launched by NASA. It constantly observes the sun and captures real-time data on solar flares and CMEs. By monitoring the sun's activity closely, scientists can track solar phenomena and predict potential storms, giving us precious time to prepare. In addition to tracking solar events, solar weather forecasting systems have been developed by NASA and NOAA. These systems allow scientists to send out early warnings of solar storms, often days in advance. This time, caution enables us to take precautionary steps to protect sensitive infrastructure and technology. Research doesn't stop at forecasting. Much of the work being done is focused on understanding how solar storms behave, their intensity, and their potential impact on Earth. Using advanced computer simulations, scientists can model how solar winds interact with Earth's magnetosphere, offering deeper insights into what we might face during a major solar storm. NASA is working hard to protect our space assets. Satellites are vulnerable to solar radiation, so there are ongoing efforts to design spacecraft that are better shielded from these intense bursts of energy. In addition, protective devices are being developed to minimize damage to sensitive satellite equipment. While we can't prevent a solar storm from hitting, these ongoing efforts provide a much-needed defense, allowing us to better predict, prepare for, and mitigate its effects. What can we do? How can we prepare? Even though organizations like NASA are doing everything they can, there's also a role for us to play in preparing for the potential impact of a solar storm. One of the most important things we can do is to stay informed. Understanding the risks of solar weather and following the updates from space weather monitoring agencies like NASA and NOAA can give us the critical information we need to respond quickly. For example, power grid resilience is a key issue. As a society, we can advocate for stronger, more resilient power grids, which would be better equipped to handle the geomagnetic disturbances caused by solar storms. Utility companies are already working on strategies like undergrounding power lines using smart grids and installing protective devices to shield transformers and other vital components. On an individual level, emergency preparedness is always a wise choice. Being ready for long power outages, having a backup power source like a generator, and keeping a stock of essential supplies, such as non-perishable food and water, can make a big difference during any kind of crisis, solar storm or otherwise. Additionally, for those of us who rely heavily on satellite-based systems for communication or navigation, it's smart to back up critical data and have contingency plans in case of disruptions. While we can't control solar activity, we can prepare for the possibility that communication systems might be impacted. In the end, though, while we can't stop a solar storm from happening, staying informed, advocating for stronger infrastructure, and being prepared for disruptions can go a long way toward reducing the impact on our daily lives. Ultimately, this is a shared responsibility. The world we live in today is more interconnected than ever, and with that comes a heightened vulnerability to space weather. Solar storms, once an abstract threat, are now something we must take seriously. The Carrington Event of 1859 was a stark reminder of what could happen, but we've come a long way in understanding and preparing for these dangers. Thanks to agencies like NASA, we have cutting-edge research, early warning systems, and improved satellite protection. Still, we all have a role to play by advocating for stronger infrastructure, staying informed, and preparing for emergencies. We can face the next solar storm with a sense of readiness. The sun's power may be unpredictable, but our ability to respond is not. The choices we make today, from how we build our grids to how we prepare for disruption, will determine how well we will handle the solar storms of tomorrow.
Thanks for watching, and keep asking the big questions. I'm Kim, and this was another step into the strange future, present, and past of science and history. Comment, like, and subscribe for more. It's gonna get wild, and I'll see you next time on The History Tales.
As history unravels tale by tale. Subscribe now and paw through the past with us.